Hare Krishna. We will be reading from chapter number 5, The God's Curse, from The Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam from Canto 8, Enchanting pastimes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukam Karoti Vachalam, Pangum Langhaite Girim, Yatkripa Tamam Bante Shri Gurum Dhintarinam, Parmananta Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram, Hari Om Tatsat. Shukadev said, My dear king, the history of Gajendra's liberation is most auspicious. Hearing such divine pastimes can free one from all sinful reactions. Now please listen as I narrate the history of Raivat, who became the fifth Manu after his brother Tamas. During his term as Manu, there was a sage called Shubhra whose wife was Vikuntha. The Supreme Lord Vaikuntha and his plenary expansions took birth as their sons. Vaikuntha's brothers became the gods. To please his wife, the goddess of fortune, Vaikuntha manifested another Vaikuntha planet, which is worshipped in the same way as the Lord's other spiritual planets. Where is this planet? It is within this universe, just above the Loka Loka mountain. How can a spiritual planet be within the material universe? Everything is possible for Krishna, said Shukadev. If you could count the atoms in this one universe, maybe you could count his transcendental qualities. They are without limit. No one can understand Krishna's spiritual opulence. Parikshit's face reddened. Yes, of course, you are right. Please forgive my impudence. Kindly continue telling me about the Manus. Shukadev smiled at the king's humility and continued to describe the details of the sixth Manu's reign. During the time of Chakshusha Manu, the Lord incarnated as Ajita, the son of Vairaj and Devasambhuti. In that incarnation, Krishna became a tortoise and supported Mandara mountain. During this episode, nectar was produced by churning the milk and later distributed to the gods. And how apt to read this pastime when Kumbh recently ended 2 days ago on Mahashivratri in Prayagraj. The Mahakumbh rather, which comes after 144 years. Parikshit opened during the episode, nectar was produced by churning the milk ocean and later distributed to the gods. Parikshit opened his eyes wide in wonder. This sounded like a fascinating history. I am keen to know more about why did Krishna incarnate as a tortoise to hold up the Mount Mandar? How did he churn the milk ocean? How did the gods receive the nectar? Was anything else produced during the churning? Please tell me everything. Shukadev said, Why do you want so much detail? Tears fell from Parikshit's eyes. My heart is always disturbed by the sufferings of material existence. The only remedy which alleviates my pain is hearing descriptions of Krishna's pastimes. Shukadev looked with affection at the king. It is your great good fortune that you have developed a strong attraction for hearing about Krishna. This will ensure your eternal welfare. Now please listen as I describe the history of Lord Kurma, the divine tortoise. With his head held high, Indra rode down the wide roads of Amravati on the back of his great elephant Airavat. He was flanked by prominent guards and followed by his vast army. The celestials lined the roads, cheering the procession with chants of Long live King Indra. Brahmins chanted auspicious mantras to welcome, Gandharvas sang and played musical instruments. Beautiful apsaras danced and scattered fragrant flowers petals on the victorious gods. Many citizens ran forward to garland the returning heroes. The warriors shone brilliantly in their jeweled armors, decked with an abundance of fragrant flower garlands. They smiled and waved to the jubilant crowd. Durvasa and his 1,000 disciples happened to be visiting the heavens at this time. Caught up in the fervor of the reception, Durvasa removed from his neck a celestial garland he had earlier received from Vishnu. Pushing through the crowd, he approached Indra, calling, "Indra, king of heaven, I commend you." With these words, the sage held up his divine garland to offer to Indra. Intoxicated with his victory, Indra leaned over and plucked the garland from the sage's hands without acknowledging him. Durvasa scowled. He had expected Indra to descend from his elephant, offer his respect, and allow Durvasa to garland him personally. The sage looked around. People everywhere were calling out their congratulations. All glory to Indra, mighty king of the gods. Durvasa stepped back. Never mind, it was understandable that King Indra should be overcome with pride given the circumstances. Then, to the sage's horror, Indra, already weighed with many garlands, tossed Durvasa's garland onto Airavat's head. As Durvasa looked on, the startled elephant, disliking the intense fragrance of the garland, tossed it into the air as if in slow motion. The garland span to the ground and was crushed beneath the feet of the marching beast. Durvasa's neck and face turned a bright scarlet, his eyebrows furrowed, and his eyes became red like hot coals. Unheedful for the sage's anger, Indra rode past, waving happily to the adorning crowds. "Indra, you fool!" bellowed Durvasa. His voice resounded like thunder, rising above the chatter of the crowds. Everyone ceased their revelry and turned to see who had disrupted the victory parade. Durvasa's eyes seemed to emit fire as he stood with legs planted firmly apart, his right arm stretched out, pointing angrily up at Indra. "Proud of your opulence, you have dared to disregard my gift. I curse you and the 3 planetary systems you govern to become bereft of all fortune. As you have cast down my garland, so shall you be cast down." So King Indra gets cursed by Durvasa Muni. Indra leapt from his elephant, his face a mask of horror. Upsetting the irascible Durvasa was a terrible blunder. He fell to his knees and begged the sage for forgiveness, but the implacable Durvasa stormed off angrily, followed by his many disciples. All of them stared straight ahead and ignored all pleas for clemency. Immediately, Indra and the other gods felt their power and influence desert them. Their bodies' luster diminished and their minds became despondent. "Alas," cried Indra, "what have I done? Now we face destruction. When they hear of this curse, the Asuras will surely attack." As Indra had feared, the Asuras' chief Bali had received word of Durvasa's curse. He spoke at once to his ministers. "Hear me, Asura generals, our time has come. The gods are now weak. Let us immediately sally forth and crush them." The cheering Asuras swarmed up from the lower planets and rushed upon Amravati, as you know, which was the capital of Indra. "Slay them, chop them, spare none," they cried as they spurred on their mountains and drove their great golden chariots. They fell upon the gods with tremendous roars, discharging countless serpents like weapons. Although the gods valiantly fended off the attack, they were soon overcome. Many were slain, and the decimated celestial army fled. Indra, Varuna, and a few other surviving gods realized they were in grave peril. The Asuras would want to finish the job. Consulting together, they would think of no solution other than to seek Lord Brahma's shelter. Wounded, tired, and disheveled, they fled to Brahma's abode, where they fell for the great deity in obeisance. "My dear God," said Brahma, "what has happened to you?" So these gods, they're all begin with lowercase, like Prabhupada calls them demigods. "What has happened to you?" On hearing everything, an understanding danger, facing both the gods and the three planetary systems, Brahma began to meditate on Vishnu. When he finished, he felt enlivened and he reassured the gods. Ultimately, all beings have come from the Supreme Person. It may seem that some species came from the progenitors or me, but I am merely the incarnation of the Lord's mode of passion. And the progenitors come from me, so he is the origin of the beings. Therefore, best we seek Lord Vishnu's guidance, which benefits everyone. After all, he is equal to both you and the asuras. He neither hates nor favors anyone, nor is he inclined to kill or protect anyone. The gods look concerned. They depended upon his intervention. Indra said, "Why do we see so much killing if the Lord does not kill? Does he not especially kill the asuras to protect the pious? The Lord does not personally kill, he acts through his energies. Utilizing the mode of passion, he creates. Through the ignorance, he destroys, and the goodness, he protects." And famously in the world, we hear this acronym God, G for generator, O for operator, and D for destroyer. The gods glanced at one another. How were they to be saved? Brahma smiled. "Since you require the God's protection, Lord's protection, you need to act in goodness, which means following his guidance." The Lord is inclined toward you gods. Therefore, if you accept his advice, he will surely bestow good fortune on you. Brahma mounted his swan carrier and, followed by the gods, he swiftly travelled to the island of Shvetadvipa, situated in the Milk Ocean, to confer with Lord Vishnu. Arriving at Shvetadvipa, some of the gods' retinue looked around, expecting to see Vishnu. He was nowhere visible. When Brahma started offering him eloquent prayers, one celestial whispered to the Ashwini Kumar brothers, "Who is he talking to?" "Lord Vishnu," came the reply. "I can't see Vishnu, can you?" The Ashwini god shook his head. "Can Brahma see him, do you think?" "Probably not. Vishnu is only perceived when he so desires. If he cannot see him, how can he speak to him?" The Ashwini frowned at the doubting celestial. "He does not have to see the Lord. Vedic evidence is sufficient to know he is present." The lesser celestial thanked the Ashwini with folded palms. "Forgive my doubts." Brahma prayed loudly so all the gods could hear and join in his appeal. He said, "I offer my obeisance to Lord Vishnu, the unchanging, unlimited, supreme truth, the origin of everything. You are in everyone's heart and every atom. Since you are not material, we can neither properly understand you nor describe you." So the gods, the demigods, are praising Lord Vishnu. "We can neither properly understand nor describe you, but we accept you as a supreme venerable God. Lord of all, you know everything, including each living being, their desires and thoughts. You control everyone and everything. Since you do not have a material body, you are not affected by karmic reactions." So it's clearly explained here. Why do we get karmic reactions? Because we all have material bodies. And earlier it said, "Lord, you are in everyone's heart." Yes, he is in our heart as Kshirodakshay Vishnu, and in every atom he is there. In every universe he is there as Garbhodakshay Vishnu. You are not affected by karmic reactions because you don't have material body, nor you are subject to ignorance. Indeed, you can enlighten everyone, but I seek your shelter, for you are the Supreme Lord who incarnates with 6 excellences. In Satya, Treta, and Dwapar Yugas, you are sometimes compared to the axle of the moving wheel of a chariot, of a fast moving wheel or of a chariot, and our material bodies are compared to the chariot. Our senses, life airs, modes of natures, the mind, and the elements make up the different parts of the chariot wheel. Brahma turned to the gods, "Join me in offering our obeisance to Lord Vishnu, who is situated in pure goodness, untouched by the ignorance of the material world. He is always near us, but those of us subject to the ignorance of material consciousness cannot see him. Only the perfect yogis who are undisturbed by the material dualities can see him. My dear gods, without surrendering to Lord Vishnu, one will remain bewildered and thus become frustrated in life. Only by his grace can anyone understand how to attain success. Without discrimination, he will enlighten anyone who seeks his shelter." Even we gods in the modes of goodness fail to understand the Lord, though he is present externally as time and internally as supersoul. What can be expected of the demoniac atheists governed by ignorance and passion? They can never understand him, since we can only know anything about him by his grace. Let us offer him our respectful obeisance. The gods looked despondent. Even the great Brahma knew nothing about Vishnu. What hope was there for them? Brahma understood their worry. He said, "I know something about the Lord's manifestation in the material world. For example, I know that the material universe, along with the four kinds of living beings inhabiting it, is manifested by the unlimited opulence, and the entire material universe rests upon the lotus feet. Therefore, I can understand the importance of pleasing him." The gods looked confused. One of them voiced their common doubt. "There are many species of life in the universe. Why do you say just four kinds?" Another said, "They have this doubt," and another one too. "I thought the material universe rested on the stalk of the lotus flower growing from Garbhodakshai's, Vishnu's abdomen. Why did you say that it rests on his lotus feet?" Brahma said, "Firstly, all the different species of life can be categorized into four types: those born from embryo, from eggs, from perspiration, and lastly from the seeds. Regarding your second questions, you are thinking of what happens within each egg. However, the universe all the universes float in the Mahatattva. Regarding your second question, you are thinking of what happened within each universal egg. However, all the universes float in the Mahabharata, regardless, which rests, no, I'll repeat again. However, all the universes float in the Mahatattva, which rests on the Lord's lotus feet." "What else do you know?" asked one of the attentive gods. "The entire world and all its inhabitants come from and depend on water. Some say this life-giving water is Krishna. Some say this life giving water is Krishna, and others say it is his perspiration. Either way, we should give a clue to his. We will give a. This should give us a clue as to the importance of pleasing him. Soma, the moon god, said, "I thought all beings, including the gods, depend on me for their strength and longevity." Brahma said, "Dear Soma, your rays are essential to produce nutritious food gains necessary for everyone. Dear Soma, your rays are essential to produce nutritious food grains necessary for everyone, including the gods, to live a long and healthy life. However, you should know that you receive your potency from the Lord's mind. He is the source of all opulence, even yours. Therefore, we must please him." Brahma addressed all the gods. "Now all your powers depend on the Lord. Agni's fire is the Lord's mouth by which he receives the sacrificial oblations, or the ahutis, like we say in Hindi and Sanskrit. As the fire of digestion is in everyone's stomach, it is the Lord's opulence. Surya is famous for opening the path of liberation for the yogis, for being the embodiment of for being the embodiment of the Vedic knowledge and the source of life and health. This is also due to Krishna's empowerment and Surya's right. Agni's fire is the Lord's mouth by which he receives sacrificial oblations as the fire of digestion in everyone's stomach. It is the Lord's opulence. Surya is famous for opening the path of liberation for yogis, for being embodiment of Vedic knowledge, find the sources of life and the death. This is also due to Krishna's empowerment, and Surya is of course famous as Lord's eye. Brahma turned to Vayu, the vital force in all beings, though moving and not moving, depends upon you. This is, yes. This is also due to Krishna's empowerment, and Surya is of course famous as Lord's eye. Brahma turned to Vayu, the vital force for all beings. Both moving and non-moving depends on you. Indeed, to live, we all need the air you supply. However, the air originally comes from Vishnu. Therefore, you too need to please him. He swept his arm about, encompassing all the celestials. You all come from and depend on Vishnu. You gods of the directions are generated from his ears. You control the living entities, eyes, ears, nose, nostrils, rectums, genitals, and other stuff. Come from his heart. So you gods of the directions are generated from Vishnu's ears. You who control the living entities, eyes, ears, nostrils, rectum, genitals, in other words all the senses, they come from Lord's heart. You gods controlling the secondary life airs within the body receive empowerment, and Brahma pointed to Indra. So repeat the previous sentence again. You gods controlling the secondary life airs within the body receive empowerment from Vishnu's transcendental body. Brahma pointed to Indra. Your strength comes from Vishnu. All the gods were generated by the Lord's mercy except for Shiva and me. Indra asks, where do you come from? Shiva was generated by Vishnu's anger, and I came from his intelligence. Even the Vedic mantras are generated from the Lord's pores, and the saintly universe progenitors come from his genitals. We all depend entirely on the Lord. The saintly universal progenitors come from his genitals. We all depend entirely on the Lord, and therefore we all must please him. Surya said, is this true of all celestials or just principal gods? Everyone from major to minor gods come from Vishnu. The gods of the fortune come from his chest. The inhabitants of Pitriloka from his shadows. Religion from his chest, and the irreligion from his back. So goddess of fortune comes from God's chest. The inhabitants of Pitriloka from his shadow. Religion is coming from the chest, and the irreligion is coming from the back. The heavenly planets were generated from the crown of his head, and the apsaras from his sense of enjoyment. Everyone depends on the Lord's pleasure of function. Apsaras from his senses of enjoyment. Everyone depends on the Lord's pleasure until everyone depends on Lord's pleasure to function. Chandra said, I see how we celestials need to be empowered by Vishnu, but how is that the case with normal mortals? Everyone gets their ability from Krishna. Replied Brahma, for example, both the Brahmins and the Vedas come from the everyone gets the ability from Krishna, replied Brahma. For example, both the Brahmins and Vedas come from the Lord's mouth. The Kshatriyas, along with their strength, come from his arm. The Vishvashyas, with their For example, both the Brahmins and Vedas come from Vishnu's mouth, and the Kshatriyas, along with his strength, come from his arms. The Vaishyas from the agricultural entrepreneurship or expertise. Comes from his thighs, and the Shudras, along with their different inclinations to serve, come from his feet. Therefore, to succeed in any field of activity, one must please Lord.